been 13 months since the first case of COVID-19 was detected. Since then, more than 2 million people have died from the virus, including 389,000 Americans. Yesterday, the World Health Organization announced that they sent 13 scientists to Wuhan, China, to investigate the origins of the deadly disease. Was it from a wet market or a lab? The question has gone unanswered for almost a year now. So what are they going to find? Will China ever be held accountable? What would that even mean? And joining me now to discuss this is the author of The Coming Collapse of China, Gordon Chang. Gordon, good to see you.
Good to see you, Buck. Thank you so much.
So we know that China has pushed back, and just for everyone's context, the World Health Organization on January 14th of 2020, so almost exactly a year ago, tweeted out that the preliminary investigations conducted by the Chinese authorities have found no clear evidence of human-to-human transmission of the novel coronavirus, COVID-19. We know that that's obviously a big lie, Gordon. Everyone's figured that one out. But now we have another WHO team. Tell me what our expectations are for how it's going so far.
I think the expectations are quite low. I mean, the WHO mission, which is actually the third to Wuhan, there were two, one in January, one in February last year. Those were public relations exercises. And this one, although it's going to be longer, is really also just PR. I mean, they're going to be there a month, but 2 weeks are in quarantine. The terms of the mission were very heavily negotiated. They're not going to be able to do what they need to do, which is to stay there for a very long time and investigate, talk to anyone, go anywhere. That's not going to happen.
Gordon, also, there's an outbreak right now in China. What can you tell us about this?
Yeah, this outbreak is in the province that surrounds Beijing, and that means this is especially sensitive for the Chinese leaders. And so therefore, they've locked down about 22 million people, according to their reports, perhaps more. This is going to be serious because they're going to hold in March their what they call the two meetings, the meetings of the National People's Congress and a Communist Party meeting of consultants. And if they have to postpone this year, like they postponed last year, that will be, I think, very embarrassing for the regime. So they're going all out to make sure that they can end this. But, you know, this bug is just resistant to measures that we have been able to devise as a human race. So I'm not so sure that China will be successful in containing this outbreak in just Hubei province.
And Gordon, China's pointed fingers at some other countries here, trying to take some of the blame away from it in the international community. They say, for example, Italy was the origin or a place of origin for the virus when it first broke out. Well, what do we know about that? I mean, where are we in how the certainty of where this came from before we even get into what specifically that means within those countries' borders?
Yeah, we still have not discovered with certainty the origin of this outbreak. There are many theories, and as you point out, China's pointed the finger to Italy, Spain, India, the United States, frozen food packaging, all the rest of it. But clearly, this is a disease which generated from Chinese soil. It's interestingly, Matt Pottinger, who was then Deputy National Security Advisor, at the end of last month gave a briefing to British parliamentarians, and he said it was more likely than not that the source of this disease was the Wuhan Institute of Virology, which is China's only P4 biosafety lab, which is very close to the wet market that many people first suspected. We're not going to really know unless the U.S. declassifies intelligence. The Trump administration's been declassifying a lot of stuff in the last couple of days. They should also do this because we need to know where this disease came from.
We have, according to the South China Morning Post, Xi Jinping says the time and momentum is on China's side as he lays out his Communist Party vision for his country. We know that Gordon Biden is going to take office here in just a matter of days. What are going to be some of the first things we should expect from the Chinese side of this negotiation, or ongoing relationship, I should say, with the U.S.? What's Xi Jinping going to try to do in what would effectively be a reset, in his mind, of his relationship with the administration?
My guess is that the Chinese are going to be extremely arrogant and they're going to try to push Biden around. You pointed out to his comments from the beginning of this week on Monday when he spoke to ministerial and provincial level cadres. And essentially what he said was, the world is witnessing changes that have not been seen in a century. In other words, he was talking about the demise of the United States and the rise of China. So they're extremely arrogant right now. We know that they didn't test President Trump with a military provocation at the beginning of his term. I think that's because they were afraid of him, but they weren't afraid of George W. Bush or Barack Obama. We had incidents at the beginning of their terms. So we've got to be concerned that there will be some sort of incident at the beginning of Biden's term. I'm not saying it will occur. I'm saying that the U.S. Armed Forces and indeed the United States needs to be prepared for some sort of incident in the next few months.
Where would you suspect the most likely places are in the U.S.-China relationship for a flashpoint or a flare-up of some kind?
It can be anywhere, Buck. Most people say South China Sea, Taiwan, could be Japan. There are Chinese troops now deep into Indian-controlled territory. China's encroached on Bhutan and Nepal. China is really trying to expand its borders. So anywhere along China's periphery would be a candidate, but you never know because Beijing can strike anywhere. And we know that these guys can take us by surprise because they've done that in the past.
And Gordon, if we're analyzing whether China has been able to leverage the COVID-19 pandemic to get an advantage over the U.S. in terms of the speed of coming out of this, the damage it's done to us and our economy and our society versus the damage it's done to China, how would you assess that?
Well, they've done very good on the economy. So, for instance, their exports are at record levels right now because they're exporting not only personal protective equipment, but also electronics, personal electronics, which people are using because they're stuck at home in the U.S. So that they've done well. But internally, their consumption is really very disappointing, which points to long-term weakness in the Chinese economy. And indeed, Buck, long-term, a society is only going to recover from this if they've got safe and effective vaccines. The U.S. has 2 of them. China doesn't have a safe and effective vaccine. Their vaccines are testing at like 50%, 35%. Their protocols have been different for all their phase 3 trials. So China is well behind us in terms of vaccinations. And this is going to be critical, at least in the long term.
Follow Gordon G. Chang on Twitter, everybody, for more analysis on what's going on around the world. Gordon, great to have you as always. Thanks for joining. Hey, Team Buck, just want to say thanks so much for watching The First on YouTube. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more great content from The First, please click that subscribe button.